Okay, hello everybody. Today, I guess I can move this hat. Hey, it doesn't need to be in the background, does it? I'll just toss it over there for right now. So today we are going to review the movie Charlie's Angels, not the one from the early 2000s, which was also a reboot from the TV series, and I don't really know how long the TV series was exactly. I think it was only a few years long, but anyhow, even that was a reboot, even though that was how I was introduced to Charlie's Angels, was Lucy Liu, Drew Barrymore, and Cameron Diaz. So they rebooted it again in 2019, and from the trailers, I mean, it looked like a promising movie, and then there was a whole bunch of backlash on Elizabeth Banks for some stuff she said about a certain gender that should, be willing to go to a theater to see this movie. Which, fine, whatever, I guess. But also at the same time, that kind of made me not want to go see it because I was originally going to go see it. And I can't remember what else came out around this time that I just didn't really have the money for either at the time. So I just was kind of, in 2019, let's just say, my money was going more towards concerts than it was anything else, which I'm kind of glad of because, I didn't know the unforeseen circumstances of what 2020 was going to bring. So I'm glad that I spent my money elsewhere rather than spending it in a theater more than I probably should have, even though I probably still spent more time in a theater than I should have anyway. But that's kind of what led me to this point of finally finding a passion and reviewing movies, as you guys all know. Even though I started out doing it, when did I start doing this? Way back in like 2017, I think, maybe. It's been a long time since it's been a long time I've been doing this. So anyway, this movie, I believe, was the director was Elizabeth Banks, and I have nothing against her directing style. I know she's gotten a lot of backlash for it. The only thing I would say, I mean, she did movie 43, I believe that's what it's called, and I thought that was hilarious. But maybe that was just because it was a comedy movie and the jokes were delivered really well, or maybe that's just... See, I don't know. I like all types of humor. So I can't really say I have a favorite type of humor because I also like dry humor too. So there you go. I like dark humor, any type of humor really. If the joke is delivered well, it's going to be funny. But anyhow, that doesn't really matter for this movie because I feel like this movie was trying to take itself almost too serious for a Charlie's Angels movie. And one of them was a scientist. I do believe, yeah. So, they're trying to get this device called... Goddamn. I was doing so much other stuff this morning. Oh, come on. Where is it? Seriously, it's not going to tell me the name of the device. Well, that's a joke. Okay, hold on here a second, because that's really important. So, I don't know why it just... Name of device in Charlie's... Oh my god. Callisto, right. I almost said Calypso, like I was still watching Pirates of the Caribbean. So, this device named Callisto is basically like any other kind of it's like Google Play or Siri or what's the other one? Alexa. It's kind of like that, but it's way more powerful and it can be weaponized. I assume probably the other ones could be too if you wanted to make any modifications to it. But anyhow, so Bosley, who was played by his name Patrick Stewart, is supposed to be, I guess, the original Bosley in this. Now, I thought Bosley was a person, but the way they explain Bosley in this movie is a ranking. So there's more than one Bosley, which I found kind of weird. There's just a room full of people named Bosley. It's like a rank for their agency instead of like, like sergeant or lieutenant or corporal. They have Bosley as like the top, one of the top ranking agents, I guess. And then I suppose Charlie would be the like leader or top superior agent, I suppose. So anyhow, the rest of the stars of this movie, because there is a lot of people in this cast, are Kristen Stewart, who plays Sabina, Naomi Scott, who plays Elena, and Ella Balinski, who plays Jane, Elizabeth Banks, who is also a Bosley, but she goes by Boz, Damon Hansu, who plays Edgar Bosley, so another Bosley. Although I can't remember what they said his actual real name was, because it wasn't Bosley. But his real last name wasn't Bosley. We have Sam Claflin plays Alexander Brock. Jonathan Tucker, who plays Hodak, he was an assassin. Nate Faxon, who plays Peter Fleming. Chris Pang, who plays Johnny Smith. And then Noah, I believe he was the nerdy guy, right? Noah Centillo plays Langston. And David Shooter, who plays Ralph, who was one of the security guards at the facility that Jane worked at. So anyhow, it starts out with Sabina and Elena working together to bring down this guy named, because there's so many people in this movie, named Hawaiian Johnny. And I can't really, I guess they were bringing him down for whatever his crimes were. That's kind of how the movie starts and how you're introduced to at least two of the three angels. So then Bosley retires. Then we get introduced to this Callisto device, and so even though Jane was the lead designer on it, unfortunately it doesn't work out well for her because Peter Fleming, her boss, wants to take all of the credit for it, even though he really doesn't know the workings of it, and he's obviously trying to sell it off to the highest bidder, who happens to be Alexander Brock. So, and Alexander Brock obviously wants to be the face of Callisto so that he can have all the power. So it's really just a power struggle, and I guess the main point there was that the lead scientist was just being ignored, and obviously because, I guess maybe it was probably because she was a woman, they didn't want her to be the face of it. They wanted to take the credit over her, which I assume probably does actually, well, obviously it does actually happen in real life scenarios too. But she could have said more when she was in the office, but she chose to keep her mouth shut so she could keep her job, right? So then as time goes on, she's giving up the information about Callisto to this Bosley guy, Edgar, as we know him. And then there's this assassin in the coffee shop that the angels are working at, and there's a big fight between him and, so there's a big fight between Hodak and Elena in the coffee shop. Unfortunately, in that scenario, Edgar does end up dying. He gets shot by Hodak, and Hodak is able to get away. We're not really sure who Hodak is working for at this point, but we believe it to be Jane's boss, Peter Fleming. That's who we believe it to be at this point. So, turns out that's not who he was working for at all. Turns out he's working for this guy named Hawaiian Johnny. Because when Peter goes to give the device to Hawaiian Johnny, he ends up getting shot in the process by Hodak, and then Hawaiian Johnny goes, that's not the way that was supposed to go. And then we think that Boz is a traitor because she leaves the three angels now at this point at the warehouse. But truly, she actually is going to try to stop the original Bosley from killing the angels, because his intentions with the Callisto device are to weaponize it. So, turns out that Alexander Brock is not that great of a guy. Turns out he's also working with Bosley and Hodak. So it's just a big mess of things that are happening, and it's kind of all over the place. I found, like, you didn't know who was the good guy and who was the bad guy, and whether anybody was really good in the end of it, I don't really know, because the angels were kind of meant to be, I mean, one of them worked for MI6. She was a trained assassin. The other one, I guess, just kind of had a bad rep as a child, so she was, I guess, finally found her calling. And the second, Kristen Stewart's character, Sabina, had a bad rep as a child, teenager, whatever you want to call it. So I guess she kind of was forced into this a little bit, maybe, or she just kind of found her calling. I'm not really sure how she explained her story, but something like that. She was kind of all over the place, in and out of juvie, I think, at one point, and obviously just in a lot of trouble. And then Elena, who used to work for MI6, I guess didn't necessarily follow the ranking order, so she just kind of was kicked out, I suppose. And that's what I mean. Like, some of the scenes were a little, I don't want to say they weren't overdone. I mean, it was just like, some of them were just a little unbelievable. Like, especially some scenes at the warehouse where they're like jumping from like, I don't know what they call it, like conveyor belt to conveyor belt outside. It was like probably like a good like 15-foot, 20-foot drop from like one to the other. And I kind of got laughing because it was like, yeah, that would have been, I don't care who you are. You're not superhuman, so you would have probably broken a bone in a lot of these situations. Just, some of it just seemed a little, some of the action seemed, some of the action scenes just seemed a little goofy, and like they weren't taking themselves seriously. And then some of the scenes that could have taken themselves a little, more lighthearted, seems to be taking themselves way too seriously. It was just, the movie seemed almost like too backwards. And yeah, I would say maybe that was where the camera work could have been a little bit better, and maybe the directing could have been done a little bit better. I don't know. Some of the scenes seemed like they weren't even needed in the movie. Like, they could have just been cut out, and the movie could have been probably about 10 to 15 minutes shorter. And it would have been better, because at one point they're on this boat, and it seems like a closing song is about to start. And I was like, this is how the movie ends? So I actually had to check the time on the movie, and there's still 20 minutes left. I'm like, oh, okay, so what's going to happen now? Because that seemed like the ending. So what kind of weird twist is this going to take? And then that's when the, I guess, safe house blows up, and Hodak is there. It looks like Boz dies because she's shot by Bosley. You're thinking Bosley is the good guy at this point. Turns out he's not. Boz is actually the good guy, and she's trying to stop Bosley from weaponizing the, God damn it, I forgot the name of the device. And she's trying to stop Bosley from weaponizing Callisto. which ends up working thanks to the smart mind of Jane. Because without her, Callisto would have easily been weaponized because obviously Alexander Brock didn't want to lose his life right over something as silly as that, so he decides to just give it up. And unfortunately, Ralph does die because he doesn't listen to Jane when they're at the facility where Callisto was created, because it can create a small EMP, and I guess it kind of shocks the brain waves and can kill a person. So unfortunately, there were some unfortunate circumstances in this movie where people died. The only death that was absolutely necessary in this movie I found was probably Hodak's, just because I didn't even see Edgar get shot, so I'm not sure in what exchange that even happened in. And then it was almost like the angels were supposed to be like a little mentally unstable in this one, which I found kind of odd. For, trained assassins are supposed to have, I don't really want to say remorse, but like they're not supposed to be insane. They're supposed to have, like discipline and stuff, I would think, I don't know. It just seems kind of odd to me, but anyway. Yeah, because there was a lot of scenes where it was like they were shocking them to death, and they were like, oh, he'll wake back up, trying to like reassure Jane that they weren't actually killing people, but then yet 10 seconds later they're tossing a guy out a window into a pile of rocks, and Jane seems to have absolutely no reaction to it, which makes no sense because she was reacting to all the other stuff weirdly, and then just has no reaction to that. And yeah, there was just some scenes where, especially the one action scene at the warehouse between Jane and this big huge dude, where she's just like hitting him with a tiny mouse and he's shelling up and stuff. I'm like, I'm sorry, the guy was like 6'5" probably, and like probably close to 300 pounds. I don't think you're going to be able to just hit him with a mouse and he's just going to be like, oh no, oh no. But I mean, for the movie, I get, yeah. See, that's where the directing, I think, was a little bit bad, because two of them were trained and one of them wasn't. So the two of them that were trained shouldn't have been the ones always asking for the one that had no training to come and help them, because she goes through no training throughout the entire movie and then gets all the training at the end of the movie, which makes no sense. So now she's actually a trained assassin and has the skills. Didn't have the skills before, but was always the one saving the two girls with the skills. Kind of a poor choice of direction with that part of the film, I would say. And also the weird, like 20 minutes from the end, thinking it was the ending of the movie, and they hadn't even saved the day, so I was kind of confused as to why the movie would end there, and then I was like, oh, there's 20 minutes left. So I guess they do save the day, they kill Hodak, I guess they capture the original Bosley. It doesn't really tell you what happens there. It shows that, I guess, Charlie is a woman now, so I'm not really sure where that's going to go, whether we're going to get a sequel to this film or not. I don't know if it made enough money to get a sequel, to be completely honest. I don't know. To me, Charlie's Angels, I think, only needed to be rebooted once. I don't... Like, some films are just timeless. Like, for example, Godzilla vs. Kong, or like monster movies are just timeless because of the effects and stuff you can do with them, and nobody's expecting it to look like a real creature, although they have done a really good job with the new ones, I would say. Especially with the Godzilla movies. Like, he looks monstrous and almost real when he's on screen. It's kind of scary sometimes. But, yeah, I don't know. It's just seems like some things are just generational, and it kind of stays that way, and I feel like this kind of just was that way. It was the show, then they rebooted it, and because the generation before us knew the show, they were kind of able to show us that, right? But now They just kind of came up with this movie in 2019 and went, here's Charlie's Angels, and of course the younger generation is going to have no idea what Charlie's Angels is. Most of them probably won't. Because I guess the target audience for this was obviously, I would say, the target audience for this was obviously women. Because it is a female action film, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it was what I thought it was going to be. Girls kicking ass for 2.5 hours, I think, almost, or close to 2 hours anyway. So yeah, in that aspect, it's, yeah, like, go watch the movie, because it's just that. But I think there were definitely some things that could have been improved on. So I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10, because I still think, as a whole, it was a good action film. I even went into this with low expectations, and I was still kind of not impressed with some of it, but it got really dark near the end too. Like, that's what I mean. Like, it was just kind of an all over the place. Like, some of it was comedy, some of it was action, and some of it was just a little dark and weird and didn't make a lot of sense as opposed to the whole plot and storyline of the movie. I just don't know. It seemed like too much. Some of it was just too much and could have been cut out, and it probably would have been better if it was just like 15 or 20 minutes shorter. That's all I really got to say. 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 for this movie. That's what I can give it. That's how much I enjoyed it. I might go back and watch it again just to kind of see, but yeah, I don't think I'd ever revisit this movie again. And that's just me. And maybe if they get a sequel, they'll do a little bit more with it. I don't know. Let's just check if it actually is going to get a sequel, because I don't think it will, but we never know. Because sometimes I am actually surprised by how much a movie's actually made. So let's just see more results. Let's just see if it's going to actually get a sequel. I don't think so. I don't think so, unless we look up Elizabeth Banks and see what Elizabeth Banks. Let's see what other. And she's not a bad actress. She's a good actress, because she's been in a lot of stuff that I liked, and she has directed other movies that I've liked. So let's see all. What's coming up with Elizabeth Banks' filmography? Oh, she's got 9 upcoming projects. Okay. Okay, so I don't see anything for Charlie's Angels. So I think that was probably just a one-off film. I don't know, maybe in the future there'll be an announcement for it, but I don't think there will be. So, as always, like, share, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts on this film if you've seen it. If not, please do go watch it, because everybody's opinion is different. Obviously, mine is going to be very different from what yours is. But, yeah, that's it. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.